Here now to tell us the implications of the governor's stance is John Hart,
Appreciate it.
co-founder for the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions. He was also the communications director for the late Senator Tom Coburn. John, welcome back to the show. Always good to talk to you. There was some interesting reporting in the Washington Post about kind of the bigger picture of all of this. And basically it's the GOP's shift on foreign policy from the Reagan era of, lead the free world, shining city on a hill, to this other thing, other mindset now, which kind of cheerleaded by Donald Trump and other conservatives is a more America first, more isolationist kind of a mindset. What do you make about the transformation? Is this a blip, or is this kind of where the party's going? Because speaking out against Ukraine isn't exactly the most popular political position in the world.
Really a dispute within the GOP about the future of foreign policy and America's role in it. But during the Trump era, the irony is Reaganism was not on life support during the Trump era. It was actually its lifeblood. On economic policy, Trump actually bent the knee to people like Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan to pass his tax cuts. On judges, he bent the knee to Leonard Leo with the Federalist Society. And on foreign policy, quite frankly, he talked a neo-isolationist game, but he governed more like a Reagan realist. He governed more in the spirit of Nikki Haley, who is the ambassador at the UN. And DeSantis is trying to have it both ways. And I think, his primary mistake right now, besides having a naive appeasement view on foreign policy, is he sounds like just another Washington politician who's telling people what he thinks they want to hear without any regard to the consequences of his words. So he's alienating a significant block, which I think is the majority block, of Republican primary voters who are looking for leadership. They're not looking for appeasement. They're not looking for Neville Chamberlain. They're not looking to join a surrender caucus and tell a murderous dictator that his war of aggression is a territorial dispute. I mean, that's a completely naive and dangerous way of framing what's happening in Ukraine, and DeSantis ought to know better. So we'll see if he corrects this. But, the conventional wisdom of the political race right now, that it's a contest between DeSantis and Trump, could be turned on its head because of what he said about Ukraine. And I would remind people back in 2007, at this stage in the race, Rudy Giuliani was the presumptive frontrunner. So that very well could change. And I think the vast majority of GOP voters are with Nikki Haley and other potential challengers like Mike Pence, who have said very clearly that it is in our national security interest to make sure Putin doesn't win in Ukraine, because there's no guarantee he's going to stop there. He's already threatened Poland. And if we have Russia attack Poland, we've got World War III. So does Ron DeSantis think World War III is in the national security interest of people of Florida and the rest of the United States? I sure hope not.
So how do you see this thing shaken out on Capitol Hill, given the fact that, the news today, Poland now supplying fighter jets to Ukraine? Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said Ukraine's not getting a blank check. How is this going to work in terms of military funding from the U.S. support? Are we talking fighter jets to Ukraine?
Well, I think, frankly, it might accelerate it because, and just a quick aside on the blank check idea, nobody is saying Ukraine should have a blank check. I mean, that's a red herring argument. None of these funds are going to continue without any, quote, strings attached to them. And that's just, intellectually dishonest to say that. But I think what we're seeing, and this is true of not just Ukraine, but any foreign involvement we've had, if you don't have strong American leaders articulating why it's in our national security interest to do that, public support is going to wane. And it is a self-fulfilling prophecy for DeSantis to do what he's doing. And it makes us a lot less safe. And so I think if Senate Republicans are looking at public opinion going down, they're more likely to move quickly to try to help Ukraine do as much as they can to change the facts on the ground. And this is an extremely expensive rhetorical, let's hope it's a mistake that he made, because what it does is it emboldens Putin. It encourages him to send more and more waves of soldiers to attack Ukraine, and it prolongs the conflict. It increases how much we have to spend. So it's a DeSantis war tax on the American people. It's a Trump war tax because they're making it more expensive, more costly, and more dangerous for us to ultimately win. Because if Russia, takes Ukraine, they're not going to stop there. It's going to embolden China to go after Taiwan.
Well, it will
so
be,
it's a really
it will be fascinating to see how much Ukraine plays a role in 2024, because I don't know whether Americans are as wrapped up in what happens in Ukraine as they are about critical race theory and what books my kids are reading and trans rights and the state of the economy and inflation and all the things much closer to home. We can get into that next time, but we're out of time for today. John Hart, always enjoy our conversations. Thanks for giving us some time. Come back soon, please.
Happy to do it.
Absolutely. Lindsay?